Hello, it's Melinda from Scrapbooking and Craft, just coming on today with an art journal page. Decided to swap it up and have a break from all the Halloween ghouliness and Spooktober that's going around. I thought I'd put in a video for those that aren't so much into Halloween. Personally, I love it, and I could scrapbook Halloween and make Halloween projects all year round. I just love skeletons and skulls and ghosts and stuff. So back to the book, back to the art journal page. I'm working in my altered wine book, and I've just read the page before I turned the camera on, so I had managed to dry it before I started filming, and now I'm just adding some Dilutions paints. That was a yellow, and the little book you saw there is my extra journal, and I do use that a fair bit in this video to get the excess paint off the sponge. These Tim Holtz blending foams, and I'm actually using it without the handle because the handle broke off. I do need to glue it back on, but I just haven't got around to it. Personally, I don't actually use the handle. I don't see a lot of people use the handles. I find a lot of people grab it where I'm grabbing it on the wood, and it gives you a much better control. So I may not stick the handle back on, I'm not sure. So again, just getting rid of the lime on the book. Those Tim Holtz blending foams soak up a lot of paint, and you think you've got all the paint out, and then you can do another half sheet of paper. So this one is the aqua. So again, just putting blobs on the page in about 3 different sections. Just wanting to make an overall pattern on the page. So as you can see in this title, it is a peacock page, so a peacock is coming eventually. Just working on the background at the moment. So just putting that piece of Glad Bake, if you're in Australia, or wax paper on my page because the paint is a little wet, so I can bring in this second journal. And I had this stencil off to the side, so I thought, why not clear off my stencil, clear off the paint on the blending foam through a stencil. So this is one of my stencils I sell in my store. I will link it below if I remember. Sometimes I say that and I go and forget. It's the Splat stencil. So it does a perfect ink splat. I'm loving how this page is coming together, and I'm not sure what to put over it actually. I do that, I get some backgrounds done in my pages, and then I just don't want to cover them up, so they just stay backgrounds. So just drying off that paint. The Dilutions paint dries really, really quickly, and I love how the two colours are combined and made sort of a third tone or third colour, so they will combine really nicely when they're wet. All those colours are from her first range, and I'm not sure of the actual colour names. My pots have got that grubby on the top. I don't know what the colours are. So now I bring in a stencil. This is actually my, what's this one called? Medium stone stencil. I think on the website. I will link it below. Sometimes I call them things on the website and then forget what they're called. Also, it looks a lot like a draft pattern, so I love this stencil. This stencil is just gorgeous. So I love this. I love a lot of things today, don't I? I'm loving this contrast in stencil because I take the darker colour paint and stencil on the yellow and the light green, and then I'll come back and do the reverse later. So again, trying to get some of the paint out of the sponge, and by just putting little bits of more stenciling on that page. So again, that's another altered book. I love working in altered books. I have worked in a couple of bought journals with the white page, but I do like altering books. A, they're cheaper, and B, they're more fun. So I can usually pick up an altered book like this for around a few dollars in our op shops, but to get equivalent art journals, they are sometimes in Australia $40 or $50. And I think if I'm spending that much on a book, I want every page to be perfect. But if you're working in an altered book, it doesn't matter if you stuff up a few pages, you just glue them together, just so over the top of them, or just start again. So this was an altered wine encyclopedia, and I have actually split the book in two because it got too thick for the spine, busted the spine, and I will do a video on remaking the covers for these when I get around to it. So I decided to use my leaf stencil. No, I don't. What am I doing? Oh, I'm still trying to get some paint out of that sponge. Those sponges are great to apply paint, but gee, they soak it up. So that's another background page I've got in my small journal. I swore when I shouldn't say that. I said when I first started art journaling that I would only have one art journal and complete it. And now I have probably 8 on the go. I'm dreadful. Um, I'm determined to finish this wine book by the end of the year. This one I started at the start of last year, 2015, and it's quite large. I have finished the smaller book that I started, but this one has several pages still to go in it, so I'm determined to finish it before the end of the year. Because I have several books that I have deemed as altered art books in my pile that I want to get on and use. So I took the same stencil and I took the yellow and put it over the blue, and I love how that looks. Using the same stencil, but you're getting 2 different looks because one's got dark colour under it and one's got dark colour on top of it. So just drying that up. Now I decided to grab out my little gel plate, and please excuse how messy it is. I love my gel plate and they get a fair workout in this household between my daughter and I. So this is a 5x7 gel plate. Again, using the same colours of ink. Same colours of paint. The Delusions paint, and putting blue and yellow down and mixing. Actually, I'm using a darker blue I didn't use in the background. Mixing them into be a green because I'm wanting to make some feathers for my peacock. This foam stamp I'm using is one of our foam stamps that I make and design. And it's the same foam stamp, and it's a small and a large one. It's called our abstract leaf. So I thought it reminded me a lot of a peacock. So at the moment I'm getting sort of 2 pages for one paint application. I will take a print of the gel plate in a moment. Actually no, I won't. I'm just going to move the paint around. I will later on take a print of the gel plate, and also using it as a paint palette at the moment. So wanting to get different colours of the stamped images, still in the same blue, green, yellow family. Some are not stamping as perfectly as I'd like, but that's okay. That's the sort of look I'm going for as well. So just randomly putting on the sheets of paper, and there I go and make a print, and you can see the impression in the paper. So the prints I'm actually taking off the gel plate will be put aside and used in another project. Go in my gel printing box. And the actual leaves are the ones that I'm going to cut out and use in a project. So I do a fair bit of gel printing. I must admit, when I get my gel plate out, I do sort of forget about time and will sit there for hours. And also I didn't know how many. I knew I wanted a sort of a large plume of these shapes cut out, but I didn't really count up or decide how many I wanted, so I just sort of kept going, making some more blue and some more green. So I have sped it up 3 to 4 times, so I'm usually not working this quickly, so just pausing there to show you the designs. Because I am concentrating on the actual stamped images, I don't necessarily take a print every time off the gel plate. I'm more using it as a paint palette to mix the colours. And I do apologise for the table ricketing. I am working on a trestle table. That's my art table at the moment, and it does have a bit of a give in it, because as you can see there's a line down on the right hand side, and that will appear in several of my videos. I must get a mat for the top of my table, because it is a fold up trestle. So it has a split down the middle of the table and it's a bit rockety. I like those ones. So I am hoping to make some cards with more of those prints that I took off the gel plate while making this project. So then I decided it's too light, and I decided to add some more green and yellow. So the sheets that I'm wiping the brayer off on, I don't keep going over and over those sheets. Once I'm happy with the colour, I will put those aside to dry, and they will go in my collage box, and that's what I do a lot of my paper painting out of. I will cut shapes out of them, I'll die cut out of them, I will tear them up into little pieces and glue them to more paper, because you can never glue enough paper to paper. So some more yellowy ones. I'm not sure whether I actually used the yellowy ones in my project, but you can see this one gives a really nice print. Just got the gel plate sitting on a clear, well, it's very painty, but an acrylic block. so it doesn't slide all over my table. It doesn't actually like to grip to the trestle tables. So while working like this, you can actually be quite deliberate in your design when you're stamping on your page, or you can just do randomness like I am doing. You can also put them in a deliberate pattern on the gel plate. If you're wanting a certain, you can do a circular design. You can do them all going one way. You can do them several different ways. It just depends on what look you're going for. Gee, I did do quite a few sheets of these. I must have been enjoying myself. Often I'll put a movie on the TV and my craft room is in the lounge room, and I will sit there and just play. So while I'm finishing up the gel printing, I make and manufacture the foam stamps that we're using, and also a lot of stencils and chipboard. We can also make them to order as well. So if there's a particular design you'd like in a stamp, chipboard or stencil, you can email us through the website or message us through YouTube, and we can look at making that design for you, whether it's a once-off or whether it's a continual service you need. So just ending up doing a whole page of little small ones just to use up the paint there. So I decided I might need some more interest in the leaves, and what an excuse just to do more gel prints. So I grabbed some old book paper and decided to print some of the leaves on the book paper just to give it another interest and another texture in the artwork. I sort of knew I was making a peacock, but didn't really know sort of how I was doing it, how I was doing the plume at the back. So I like how the text sort of still peeks through the paint. It's an opaque paint, the Diane Reevely one, but the book text is still showing through, which is really good. So just decided to stamp up a bunch of these. I do have oodles of the flowers left over, so sorry, not the flowers, the leaves. So I may pair them with flowers and make some cards out of them. I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see what inspires me to make something. I love on the gel plate how you can get patches of the unmixed colour or patches of the colour all mixed together, and you can get some really unique designs, which is nice. So just finishing up the last few sheets of the gel printing. I am using Diane Reevely's Delusions paints. It is Diane Reevely. I get a couple of them names mucked up with those ones. The Delusions paints on the gel plate, but I could have easily used kids paints. I do use a lot of just cheap kids paints that you can find at the Chittle shop, or Mark brands, Kaiser Craft brand, Joe Sonia ones. You can basically use any acrylic paint on your gel plate. Some paints behave better than others. It just depends on how liquid they are or solid they are in their colours. So just showing you a couple of prints there that I'm actually getting off the gel plate. I sometimes like the second pull more than the first one because it is less intense with the paint and it's just a bit more subtle. So I just decided to do some yellow leaves by the looks of it. I was running out of room all around. If you could have seen an extended part of my table, I had papers everywhere. So why am I just doing some plain sheets? I obviously had something in mind, but I can't remember what now. No idea why I did the plain ones and not stamping. And that palette knife I'm using, I love that. That's from Daiso. It's one of my latest pickups, and I'm absolutely loving it. So here we go. I actually did a lot of these off camera, but I'm showing you a couple I did. Just doing a loose scribble around with a permanent black fine liner, just around all the shapes, just to add a bit of defining lines to them. So I go around all the shapes, both the outside of the leaf shape and the inside of the shape. So I think I do one sheet with you, and I sat in front of the television and did a bunch of other sheets. This was a very lengthy process, but it's well worth it, and you can it just makes it stand out a whole lot more. Sometimes I find the more detail and the more time consuming a layout, I love it, because it just stands out, and it's sort of, I suppose the time you put into it, you like it more and you love it more. But the finer details like these are sometimes time consuming, but it just makes the work pop, which is really nice. So as you can see, I'm not being perfect. I'm sometimes going outside the shape, sometimes the shape didn't print properly, so I'm making it up as I go along. And again, I've sped this up about 3 times, so I don't draw this quickly. That's one of my favourite pens to draw with. I think it's a Uniball, and it's a quite fine one. I use it for a lot of my Zentangle and line work. And I don't even know where I got it from. It's been ages. So time to fussy cut. Don't worry, I don't make you sit and watch me fussy cut everything out. But as you can see, they're very simple to cut out, and they're very basic shapes, so they're quite easy. Quite easy just to cut out. So again, this was a good project in front of the television to fussy cut all my leaves, all my feathers. I believe I used all the ones I fussy cut out as well. So I'll just do a couple more, because everyone knows how to fussy cut things out, and then we'll jump into the actual putting the page together. So here is my Peacock head. He actually come out of a back of a magazine, a fashion magazine. So he's been photocopied. Because he was a glossy magazine, I didn't want the glossiness on the Peacock and then the flat other papers, so I did photocopy them on my photocopy printer. I've got an all-in-one office printer scanner, doohickey. So adding some glue to the outside of him, what I'm wanting to do is set up all my leaves on the Peacock and then glue them to the page in one piece. Because I want them to be tucked in behind, I don't particularly know where each layer is going to go. So I often do this if I'm putting a lot of small pieces of paper together. I will just temporarily, I can't talk today, temporarily glue them together just with a little bit of glue from this children's glue stick, and then I will move into using matte gel medium and make sure everything is stuck down flat. I couldn't have done this or got the same effect if I went straight to sticking them down with matte gel medium. So this is one tip that you can do. I'm loving how he's sort of not standing out too much from the page. It's not too much of a contrast. You could certainly make it with a contrast. You could do him on a black page. And I'm just adding a few of the little ones up and around the top just to give him a bit of depth and dimension. But he is looking gorgeous. He's got all these plumes out on display. So I wanted him to take up and to go over the crease of the book. A couple of reasons for that. It does strengthen the book spine if you do collage over the spine. And it also ties the 2 pages in together as well. So here I am taking some of my matte gel medium and just adhering down some of the layers that are need to be stuck down. Actually, I'm not using matte gel medium. I'm using, what is that? It's a Mod Podge. I think it's paper Mod Podge. I got a whole bunch of them on clearance at Spotlight and slowly working through my stack. I'm not a matte medium snob. I love Liquitex and would buy that all the time if it wasn't so pricey in Australia. Basically, I use whatever is on special and I can get my hands on at that stage. So Mod Podge comes in several different finishes. I prefer the matte, but hey, if glossy's half price, I'll have a glossy throughout my book for a while. You could even use PVA glue with a bit of water in it as well. I've used that as well. So as you can tell, this is taking a fair bit. So just defining the crease in the book as well. so it will turn and fold. And doing it this way, you almost don't see the crease in the book. The Peacock has covered it up. Just being careful not to go over and over the actual peacock's head because it is printed on my inkjet printer. If you go over the top of it several times, sometimes the ink can move or you can pick a bit of the ink up. I believe this one was printed probably several months ago. So the longer you let an inkjet print sit, the less likely you are to re-pick up the ink. So just going over and making sure all of my peacock's feathers are sealed down correctly and they're not going to come up. If that was the look you were going for, you could certainly still have them coming up. This would be lovely on a canvas, and I may turn it into a canvas as well and have them sort of three-dimensional, which would look really, really cool. Sort of curl them and make them a bit more dimensional. I tend to use a lot of my art journals as pretenses for canvases. So I may sort of do this and then change it a bit and do it on a canvas, or I may not like the idea, it just depends. So I grabbed out my Dymo label writer and decided to add some words. So these are self-sticky words, but because it's going over paint and gel medium or the Mod Podge, I do put a layer of Mod Podge underneath. So I decided the words need to stand out a bit more, so I just grabbed a sponge and decided to do some lines of paint just to mount the text on, just to give it a bit more definition from the page. And while I had the sponge and the paint, I just did around the page just to sort of define all the corners as well. So just drying that off before I add my stickers from my Dymo label machine. As I said, I do add glue under and over the stickers because sometimes the stickers don't like working on the Mod Podge surface or the painted surface so well. So I do go back and correct one of these words which I think was wrong in the punctuation. But after I'd done that, my daughter comes in and says, "No, you were right, Mum. Yes, that your." I go and turn it to a U because that's what I thought it should be. Punctuation and spelling is not one of my high points. English was not one of my good subjects at school. And my daughter come back and corrected me, so I do go back and put that back to your because it does sound better. So just giving that a bit of a dry. I'm not sure whether I go back and change that on camera or not. So I put some stills. Alexis took some still photos for me to put in at the end. Thank you for watching my art journal process, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.